the story is based on this picture below. So the students would have gotten this question and write a story based on the picture below, pretty much. So it would be an image or a text, right? And I guess the student who wrote the best story of 2013 of all the Caribbean students chose this picture. First of all, what do we think of the image and compare it to like recent images that you've seen on past papers? I don't anyone has been looking at old past papers. What do you think of this image compared to other images? We definitely have a story, like a plot event, a climax happening already just by the picture. We have some strong emotions here. We see this could be, she might be praying, hoping that the kids inside are alive. Maybe it's frustration. It could be a few things. This is the two firefighters. And the image isn't blurry and pixelated. It's quite clear. So that's my thoughts on this image. What do you guys think?
House with an auntie woman, they're praying that somebody inside safe.
Yeah, that's what came to my mind. So let's see if the story follows on that train of thought, or maybe it's a surprise story with a different kind of plot. So yeah, where sick is here, I think this means there's an error, like a writing error by the student who wrote the story, and it wasn't fixed. So we're seeing the stories as they were even with a few errors. So what we're looking at, Varys, this is the top story from 2013, the top CSEC story, 2013. And we're just going to read through it and try to figure out why it was so good. This story was written by Nathaniel Adiah, maybe, from Presentation College. That's an interesting name for a high school. And we're looking at TNT. So big up TNT. Yeah, they got the best story of 2013. So who wants to do us the honors? We're going to look at maybe 3 or 4 stories today. So a few of us will get a chance to read. I want one person to read through the entire story. And then we'll talk about why it's so good. Or if it's so good to us. But it was very good to those CSEC markers in 2013.
A whirling siren splitted the evening air. The shouts of fearful neighbors, the color of a thick black smoke, and the smell of burning wood. There was the thing that assaulted my sense that Friday evening, the day that someone's world ended. I had been out with my friends for a game of football after school that day. So when I was making my way home, it was already dark and the breeze was chilly. As I was nearing my destination, the sweet, screaming silence of the evening was torn by the distant screams of a siren. In a flash of red, a fire truck sped past me and barreled down the street. I was alarmed for all the time. I saw the smoke rising into the air. It appeared to be coming from the location of my house. My heart leaped into my throat as I was overcome with a foreboding, but then I forced myself to relax. My parents were home and they would have called me if something was wrong. It wasn't my house, but it had to be close to it. I raced down the street to my house, felt leading winds to my feet. When I turned the corner of my street, a horrific sight met my eyes. 2 doors down from my house, my neighbor's house was ablaze. The red-orange flames were consuming her house. The fire was leaping out of the windows and dancing across the roof in a brilliant display against the backdrop of the approaching night. A crowd had gathered around the house as the firefighters dressed for battle. Rage war against the endless flames. I saw my parents among the crowd, and I hurried to join them. I could feel the heat from the house where I stood, and I heard the crackling of the fire, eating the woods inside. Praise ran high among the neighbors gathered. Praise ran high around the neighbors gathered. They were worried that the fire might catch onto their houses. The next door neighbors of the burning house were throwing buckets of water on their own house to prevent the fire spreading. The owner of the house just sat on the curb, head in her The owner of the house just sat on the curb, head in her hands. Her friends tried to console her, but there was nothing they could really do. The firefighters knew their trade, and the fire was soon under control. The only incident being when a gas tank exploded. causing a fireball to be catapulted onto the streets. However, this caused nothing but panic, and the fire was reduced to smoldering ashes. The fire was extinguished, but the house was razed. The woman who owned the house was now homeless, and her face betrayed the sadness only those who had lost everything can know. She would stay with her friends for a while, but no one would argue that her world had ended.
I really like the vivid imagery. So, the action was really good.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm surprised. There are a lot of good elements here, but it's not a perfect story, is it? I am surprised that a story with no dialogue was the best. That probably means one of two things. Maybe in 2013, everyone's writing was bad. Like, meaning we've gotten much better over the years, just in general, students, like year after year. It gets more competitive. It becomes harder to get a 1 because there are so many bright students. So maybe back in 2013, the pool of students who did CXC just, it wasn't as competitive. And so a story that doesn't even have any dialogue could be the best story. Or it could be that the imagery and descriptions and action, these were so good that even without dialogue, they had to give this the top spot, because the good just outweighed the bad by such a large degree. Let's so plot wise, what do we think of the storyline? It's very, very simple, isn't it? It definitely just matches this. It's just someone seeing a fire, or seeing signs that there's a fire, wondering if it's their house, getting there, realizing it's not their house, it's somebody else's house. Not complicated at all. Very, very, very simple. But the language, that's where this story shines. Let's see if we can steal some language. There seems to be only one mistake that the person who compiled these stories corrected, and it's this there. This should be they, not there. Aside from that, it seems error-free. But let's take a look at the language. Tell me, what are some interesting pieces of language that you see here that you might want to use if you get the chance? Oh man, I gotta start here. A wailing siren splitting the evening air. That's some good imagery. Imagine a sound so sharp that it is splitting the air. That's a nice expression. Yeah. Yes, David.
I was gonna say that one, but also further down in the paragraph with there's the thing that assaulted my thing too.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Look at this piece of imagery down here. The sweet, serene silence of the evening was torn by the distinct screams of a siren. And look at this expression, barreled down the street. That's a nice way of saying it went really fast. You can imagine something like a rolling barrel just rolling down. That's a nice piece of imagery. My heart leapt into my throat. That's nice. It's not a very unique piece of imagery, but it is still good. As I was overcome with foreboding. Ooh, that's interesting. Saying that something met my eyes, as opposed to I saw a horrific sight. A little boring. A horrific sight met my eyes. That's interesting. It's as if the sight itself is so powerful, it came towards you, right? That's interesting. And this last sentence here is really nice imagery. Fire was leaping out of the windows and dancing across the roof in a brilliant display against the backdrop of the approaching night. Man, this sentence must have given this guy a lot of points. Wow, look at that. Yeah. You see some nice personification and some contrast with the fire against the backdrop of approaching night. Also setting the time. We know that it's late evening. Very good description.
Well, I'm looking at somewhere between one with a crowd had gathered around the house as the firefighters, dressed for battle, waged war against the endless flames, to the next paragraph below it. And then it slowed down, or the climax began to slow down, or it began to slow down by around. The firefighters knew their trade, and their fire was soon under control, to the last paragraph where she would stay with her friends for a while, but no one would argue that her world had ended.
And that's an interesting way to end, right? It's kind of a powerful ending. And this student really knew how to use the devices. Look at this. A crowd had gathered around the house as the firefighters dressed for battle. nice metaphor, right? Waged war against the endless flames. Nice hyperbole there. Yeah. The fire eating the wood inside. The fire is painted really as an enemy, right? Like this battle going on between soldiers and their enemies. Very interesting. Praise run high. That's a nice phrase. I don't really like this sentence. The only incident being when a gas tank exploded, causing a fireball to be catapulted onto the street. Yeah, that part's a little bit confusing for me. So that's the best of 2013. Quite a bit we can learn from that, I guess. Yeah.